Now we are ready to the next presenter today. It's another entrepreneur, it's Reimer Ivang. And Reimer, he graduated from Aalborg University as a PhD in international business in 2004, and he's now an associate professor at AAU in international marketing and new media. At the same time, he's co-founder of Better World Fashion, and today he'll present how he capitalizes on the competences he developed during his PhD. Give a warm welcome to Reimer.
Thank you very much. So this is how the hope of all of Scandinavia looks like. All the brains that is going to make it in the coming years. You're looking good. My comment to the last question. It's tough to find money. Very, very tough. But it has never been easier than now. If it was for 30 years ago, you would really, really be in a problem. But now, there's actually a lot of support. There's a lot, the universities, there's venture funds and so on, and there's a lot of focus on finding the new. So it has never been easier than now. So that's encouraging. I'm hired at Aalborg University, as I'm the head of the International Business Center out there. That means that I study companies. I should hopefully be able to understand companies. I have 15 years experience as a researcher within this field. So hopefully I should be able to understand what is going on. And that is maybe the difference from me compared to the previous one that was up here speaking, because I'm really within the field that I'm supposed to understand as an academic. That doesn't mean that I'm guaranteed success. Definitely not. I will still make mistakes. But there you have me, sitting in my leather jacket. And this is sort of my history. I graduated at Aalborg University as a student. I started in 1996. In 2003, I began my business PhD project. That's a special Danish initiative where you actually hired at the company, and then the company is subsidized from the Danish state. This is actually the son of the founder in Danfoss. I presented towards Jørgen Mads Clausen one time, and he fell asleep. Hopefully you will not do the same. I got my PhD in 2007. I worked half-time at Danfoss and Aalborg University from 2007 to 2009, where I started my own consultancy company. One of my first customers was actually Grundfos. I did some digitalization strategy at Grundfos. I started another consultancy company in 2012. And the latest development is that I've started to produce sustainable leather jackets now. And you can see there's a direct line. No, there's not. But I will come into that later. So, if you need to understand something about my PhD, as I said, it was a business PhD, a special Danish initiative where you're hired at a company and you are working in the company. I was supposed to study digitalization strategy and the process behind. How the company, a big company, remember this is in 2003, just after the dot-com bubble burst, how can they make digitalization strategy effectively? How can they actually make strategy about digitalization that can be implemented and maybe be a success? That was what I was studying in Danfoss. I was based in IT, but I actually were covering all of Danfoss, which at that time were 30,000 employees and 25 different companies placed in, they were selling their products in 130 companies. So of course it was highly, highly complex. I was researching in the years from 2003 to 2007. So this was actually in the period where in the previous years before 2003, when I contacted companies in order to see if they would collaborate with me, they said, haven't you read the newspapers? Digitalization, that died a couple of years ago, and we actually have a lot of people hired here that I would like to get out of here because we have too many. So it was another situation as if you compare. There were actually companies that had the understanding at that time that they would probably shut the power to that digitalization and internet and so on. It would go away. Today there's not a lot of companies that believe that, fortunately. I did customer interviews in 4 different countries. I was interacting with Danfoss employees all over the world. And of course, this was extremely complex to find out how a company of that size creates digitalization strategy and what kind of strategic processes were more effective compared to others. So how did my PhD process go? This is actually a very, very good picture on how my PhD project was unfolding. I could have told you the very nice story of a very, very focused guy that wanted to revolutionize the digitalization strategy and how he went step by step by step. Or I could tell you this story about, I think it was somewhere here, my supervisor came running into my office saying, Reimer, you really need to start reading and writing. And then he went out again. When I started out my PhD project, I decided that I wanted to make these 3 years the most interesting years of my life. And I was in a company, and I knew that I had two customers. I had the company, and I had the university. And I also decided from the day one that if I were to get in the unfortunate situation that I came to the end and there would be no PhD for me, then I wanted the company to be satisfied. So I had a plan B, you could say. And that was also why that I used quite a lot of time at the company in the beginning, and later on began to move up, being more at the university. Actually, when I've spent 2.5 years of my PhD, I decided that now I wanted to write my PhD. And I sat down in front of my computer and expected that it would take 6 months. It didn't. It took 10 months. But it was actually how it went that after 2.5 years, I believed that I knew enough, and I started to writing my PhD, and I did it in these 9-10 months. You could also use this, because this is really how I've been moving around. And I always kept patting myself on the shoulder saying, this is new. We are supposed to be original and develop new stuff. So who knows the direct way to the goal? Nobody knows. If somebody knows, we shouldn't do it. So if I keep moving in some kind of a direction, I will probably be nearer to the goal tomorrow than I was yesterday. Or at least I would be in a position where I could say that I would be moving in the wrong direction and then change. If I were sitting still, I would be 100% sure that I would never get there. And it's the same when you start up a company. So a lot of my friends, family asked me this question, so how far are you in your PhD? And I actually educated myself to say, I've never been so close to finishing as I am now. And that was not a lie, right? I was never so close to finishing as I was right now. It's an extremely hard question to answer, right? When people ask that question. So I actually, after a year or so, I had educated myself, so my standard answer would be this. So, when I grow up, I want to be. Just before finishing my PhD, I actually asked my main contact at Danfoss, so what can you use a candidate like me for? And this Kenneth, he was a very, very brilliant guy, very good at coaching, so he never answered questions. He typically answered by asking another question. So he said, is it possible that a company like Danfoss can use a candidate with the capacity to focus on an unclear goal and work concentrated for 3 years to bring the ship into harbor? Is it possible that we can use a guy like this? Yes, probably. For something, right? Because this is basically the most important skill to keep constantly moving, even though you're not quite sure that it is in the right direction, but you have the knowledge that if you sit still, you'll definitely not get there. So you just need to some kind of keep progressing. And that was also what Kenneth said, that of course a big company like Danfoss can use a person that is good at working in unclear conditions and bringing the ship to harbor. So that takes me to the PhD competences in relation to entrepreneurship. The latest I've ventured into is these sustainable leather jackets. They're made out of 98% reused materials. That means that plastics is in the lining. That's old plastic bottles. The leather is what the NGOs in Denmark can't sell. So that is outdated designs that we cut up and build into new jackets. The metals is as much reused as it can be. If it gets more reused, it will become weak, and then the metal. And we are selling this in a sustainable business model. So if you buy a leather jacket, we will actually buy it back when you have used it in order to save the environment for all the pain and unnecessary hassle there is in tanning leather and so on and so on. We are trying to be the contrast into a very, very multi-billion dollar industry, the fashion industry, where they want you to buy cheap, wear a little, throw out, buy new stuff. And we're trying to turn that upside down and say, no, we want to try to make it in a different way. So you are allowed to change often if you want to. You will get a discount on 50% if you come with one of my jackets and buy a new one. And I will make sure that the leather goes into circulation again so that we are 100% sure that our planet will be here for our kids and grandkids and so on and so on. And this is actually based on an idea that I developed already as a student at Aalborg University. Remember that I'm an educated economist. I'm within business. I've spent 20 years of my life on trying to market so that we can earn more money, trying to cut down on personnel so that we can earn more money, so that we can outsource so that we can earn more money. Everything that is going around in that department is to be more efficient, earn more money, sell more products, earn more money. And this is actually the academical experiment of trying to make a company that only does good, and where earning money is not the only focus. Of course, we need to earn money. We can't hire people, we can't sell more jackets, we can't make a difference in the world if we do not earn money. I know that. I'm from the business department. But it's not the only goal. So this is actually the my academical question. Is it possible to build a company where it is not only based on exploiting, earning more money? So you could say this is definitely an unclear goal that took years of work to realize. It's absolutely the same as I did in my PhD with Danfoss. Sat down, visioned something, broadly speaking, had a goal to go for, but still the road took. So I also call it naivety. Whenever we undertake something, we have a tendency to look at the reality like this and say that, it's going to be easy. It's not even going to be a very steep journey, this one. It's very, very easy. And then we find out that this is actually the situation. There's quite a lot of hills that need to be climbed. There's also valleys that need to be, that you need to get across and so on. And it's the same with my jacket. I have actually made this small one so that I could just change better world fashion up here. And that's the only difference that I actually see. I have customers. I had that in my PhD. I have this in relation to my jackets. So it's actually very, very much the same. So how can you use your PhD competences when you get out into business? I would actually say, if you ask yourself this question for the first time when you're finished as a PhD, you have already gone wrong. Because your PhD is probably the best platform to develop network and relationships that can provide you with the job afterwards. Because everybody wants to talk to a PhD student. You're bright, or you wouldn't be in the position that you are in, and you know something about the field, so of course there's a lot of people that wants to talk to you, collaborate with you, and so on. I've brought in this one, which is the VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. That's probably things that we can say about reality today, and we can probably almost say that it will certainly become more volatile, more uncertain, more complex, more ambiguous. Up here, there's Nokia as a world leader, market leader. There's no, or Nokia doesn't exist today, and we will see big companies. In here, the average lifespan of S&P 500 company is going from 75 years down to almost 20 years. So we need to accept in business that it is definitely going to be more volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Down here, they have boiled it down to these skills. I've put a circle around what I believe I can draw into my PhD, because I can certainly see some of the other skills also being important. But this is just what I have witnessed in my PhD and that I'm utilizing now. Developing an adaptive mindset, trying to see solutions instead of the opposite, having a vision. Yes, you definitely need to have a vision, or you would just run wild. Embrace abundance mindset. Again, trying to see, not to see the mistakes. Anticipate and create change. Of course, we need to do that as well. And as a PhD, you're taught in doing this, coping with it as a person. Be an agile learner, definitely, or you would never get finished. Network and collaborate. That is maybe one of the areas where PhDs in general, also the PhDs that I have in my department, could improve. Getting better at getting out of the office. Developing networks with people that could become interesting. I'm not very good at that myself, and that's probably why I'm at the university. But again, a relentless focus on customers. There's always people, you always have customers. Of course, it's different customers that buy my jackets or compared to my PhD, but I always have people that I need to satisfy. Constantly clarify and communicate. So the 3 years that you have in your PhD, make sure to make them the best and most interesting of your life. It's really, when I look back on mine, it was so extremely nice to just have one thing to focus on for 3 years. Now, I can tell you that I'm happy if I only have one thing for half an hour to focus on. Make sure to use it the most. And don't ask yourself the question of where you would be hired when you're done with your PhD. The PhD and the PhD title is not the goal in itself. It is all the capabilities and all the learnings that you get along the side. Yes? Is that too early? Questions?
Thank you for the presentation. I'm Leticia. I'm also a PhD in the Business and Management department. So I see that the university offers a lot of support for technical students to navigate the business side. But if you have knowledge of the business side, for example, in your jacket business, so you have this idea, let's make the inner part of the jacket with recycled plastic. How do you go about finding out how you're actually going to do this, if there's what kind of technical knowledge you might lack, and how do you navigate these? Because the most value-added businesses have a technical component, and that's what we lack. So if you could talk about that, that would be nice.
I agree totally. And that's also why my partner in Better World has 20 years of experience within the textile industry. And he has been handling thousands of employees in the Far East in production. And he is a production-focused guy with those competences. I can't do that. I'm certainly not the best for it. So that's about networking and partnering, accepting that what I'm good at, I'm probably better at than most of people, but there's certainly areas where I'm not so good, and then making sure that partnering up with the right people. I would rather have some percentages of something that is a success than owning everything of something that is a failure.
Any more questions?
Hi, I'm Morten. I'm also at Aalborg University from the Innovation Department. So I think you're right in a lot of what you're saying. I know you are. I've been there for 11 years and we see the same. But so how do we build this in to either education programs or the doctoral schools or into the, I don't know, the culture of the faculty or?
But I'm not sure that it needs to be built into the doctoral school, because the goal of a PhD in Denmark, it's a researcher development, and it needs to progress towards researcher. But it also needs to have a plan B, right? And that's why I believe that I don't believe that it needs to be an integrated part of the PhD school. But of course, what I tell my students that are going into traineeship on the third semester, I tell them, okay, now the decision you do on your third semester is what defines your first job. So if you don't know what you would like to be when you grow up now, you're really in a problem. Because when you go out into traineeship, into a business, you would probably develop skills and competences, relationship there, that would provide you the bridge to your first job. And it's the same. They are sort of like, the metaphor for this is when I was going on holiday with my parents, we were all sitting in this car without air conditioning and there was no GPS. So my parents had actually studied the whole route that we needed to drive. So they knew exactly where we were going. And I have sat numerous times with the maps trying to find out where we actually were. Because a map is not very handy if you don't know where you are on the map. Today, the students that I have on the university, they are almost navigating like they have a GPS. So they only need to know that they need to turn right in 30 meters. And when they turn right in 30 meters, they know that now there's 11 kilometers and they need to go left. But they don't know where they're going. So we need also for the PhD students, early on in the PhDs, to start reflecting on what is it I want to be? Do I want to work within the university? Yes, then you need to develop networks within the university that could hopefully bring you into something. If not, then you need to develop relationships and networks outside that can bring you into the first job. So it's a decision that is done much, much earlier than when you do not have a PhD position anymore.
To just comment on that and sort of invoke a discussion, because of course you have to constantly reflect on yourself of what is it that you want to do. And I was 100% sure that I wanted to pursue an academic career, and then I did a postdoc for 2.5 years and I was completely burned out with it. So what do you do then?
Burned out?
Yeah, done.
I'm not a stress researcher, but of course you can get burned out. And if you put, if you put everything on one, and then it can be hard. It definitely is hard if it doesn't play out as you would like it to be. If you take my situation, my process, I never reflected a lot in my process about what I wanted to do afterwards. And still I did anyway, because from the beginning I decided, okay, I need to make the company happy. And then we need to take care of the university afterwards, right? So I actually did. But I had never been at a situation like this where there was somebody that told me, okay, you really need to think about already from the beginning, where is it I want to be? And this was actually before I started my PhD that I had these thoughts about what is actually going on here. So it was not something that was very planned, but I still had that thought with myself.
Just to clarify, with burned out, I don't mean the psychological aspect of it that you're
No.
sitting at home with stress. I mean the flame for what you are burning for is burned out. So
Yeah.
it's like, I just don't want to continue.
I can definitely understand that, and I think that everybody feels that. That at some time you think, okay, is this really, really worth it, right? Because it is the academical environment is a tough environment, very, very tough environment, definitely. I've always been regarded as the schizophrenic, because I was never so much at the university that I was quite accepted as a full university guy. And I was not so much in business that I was fully accepted as a business guy. I was always the one people were pointing at and says, yeah, but he's not real business, or he's not real academical. So in that way, I've felt the same way. I've also uphill. But on the other side, I've also drawn a lot of energy out of working in the really, really big problems, a very long perspective, where even small changes can mean a lot. And then on the other hand, having the very, very short term, what happens tomorrow, next week, and so on. And I've been drawing a lot of energy from mixing between these two worlds.
Jana Grigorash from Aalborg University. I'm moving away from that part a little bit. I have a question regarding your company. I think it's a great idea because nowadays and in the future we will have to start reusing a lot of the things. I haven't heard about your company, but I was wondering, how did the industry actually receive this idea?
Oh, when you study innovation, you would quite fast see that it's never the established business that get first to the new one, because they only have a lot to lose from a new situation. So bestseller, H&M, Zara, all the big ones, they have only to lose from change. So they want, even though they are probably saying different, they want to keep the situation as it is, because that's where they have the big power and where they are earning quite a lot of money. And then there's quite a lot of us trying to get in there and trying to disrupt or change what is actually going on. And right now, I think that the established players are almost just trying to sort of, if they don't look at us, we probably don't exist. Because H&M is trying to do their conscious line. But their conscious line means that there's 1% recycled cotton. 1% in there. Okay? And it's only very, very small. And they're still earning 99.9% on all the other stuff, right? And of course, it's a big ship to turn around. I understand that. But the established industry, we are still so small. And especially this company is so small that nobody is really taking notice of it.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for your talk. And my name is Monshu. I'm from Lund University. And I have a question that as an international background like us, we're not familiar with Scandinavia. If we want to start up in this area, there will be a lot of disadvantage for us, but is there any fast way that we can learn? Like, should we have to cooperate with locals, or what? What
Yes.
is?
But there's also a lot of help. There's also, if you're up here in Aalborg, there's Business Region North, where you can apply for funding that can help you a little bit here and a little bit there. And there's Connect Denmark, where you can get people to help you and to supervise you and so on. So I think that entrepreneurship and business startup, it's tough. Of course it's tough. But try and think about all the small children that wants to be a professional football player. There's also quite a lot of those that do not get into being a professional football player, right? And that does also mean that it's not all ideas that needs to become a company. So I think it's okay that it's hard, but it's much easier today than it was just 15 or 20 years ago. And there's a lot of help. There's help at the university, there's help in the region, and there's also help on national level to foster startups. But of course, when you are an international, I think it would be a very, very good idea to team up with locals that know the system, that can apply for money and so on, because a lot of these applications are still written in Danish and so on.
Okay, thanks.
I think we have time for just one last question, if there are any.
I've brought a couple of my jackets. They're lying over here. If anybody of you wants to see them, touch them, whatever, you're free. I will put them up here and you can have a look at them.
Thank you very much, Reimer.
Thank you.